Have you got problems? Have you got challenges? Is life confusing? Are you struggling with decisions that were unexpected? Every day we have challenges, problems to solve. I'm going to suggest to you the number one life lesson. The most important principle, the most important fact you should never forget as you face your life day to day, as you inspire to be your best, as you try to overcome challenges, whether you're being proactive or reacting. This is Walk and Talk 149, February 23rd. It's a cool 43 degrees, Mesa, Arizona. The number one life lesson, I'm going to introduce it this way. Turn and receive. Turn and receive. The number one life lesson. I'm going to read to you Proverbs chapter 1, verse 23. I'll read the entire verse. It's a short verse. Many individuals struggle day to day. It doesn't take long to listen to the news or talk to a friend or older, younger. Life has problem after problem, or challenge after challenge, or opportunity after opportunity, or frustration after frustration. So here's Proverbs 123. I believe it's the number one lesson of life. Proverbs 123 says, "Turn to my rebuke." Now that's God talking to you, talking to me. Turn to my rebuke. That's the wisdom of God talking to you, talking to me. Turn, God says, God's wisdom, to my rebuke, my correction, my exhortation, my admonishment. Behold, God says in Proverbs 123, if you turn to God, I will pour out my spirit on you. Now, the promise, God says, listen to my rebuke as you face your life problems, your challenges, your opportunities. Listen, turn to what God says, and I will pour out my spirit on you. And then the last phrase, I will make my words known to you. I will make my words known to you. This little verse, turn to God and receive His wisdom. Any problem, any challenge, any obstacle, any opportunity, any dream that you have, turn to God and receive God's instruction. Now notice what it says here. Turn to my rebuke. Behold, I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. So think with me. Here's the God who created it all. Here's the God who made you. Here's the God who's the number one problem solver. Here's the God who designed everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In one way or another, direct or indirect, God doesn't cause all of our problems, but He does design the world in such a way that there are challenges, there are opportunities, there are obstacles. He doesn't design evil, but He gives you and me the design to have the freedom to choose between good and evil. So here you have God saying, turn to me, listen to me. Here's some practical ideas for you, some suggestions. So God is talking to you constantly. Make no mistake about it. This verse is God talking to every human being. If you read chapter 1 of Proverbs, wisdom is talking, as a matter of fact, shouting, pleading, begging for people to listen to the wisdom of God. And here it says, basically, turn to my rebuke. So in the previous verses, you'll see in chapter 1 of Proverbs that there's a lot of people that will not listen to God. They're stubborn. Call them agnostics, call them doubters, call them whatever you want to call them, but they're not listening. And God is simply saying in verse 23, turn from doubting, turn to my wisdom. I'm trying to get your attention. I'm talking to you. If you pause long enough, you'll hear God's wisdom. When you're faced with any situation, think about the options that you have before you. Just consider, just say you're fighting cancer and you don't know what to do. Well, you can list 3 or 4 options. I'll bet one of them is going to be pray. Pray to God. Ask for God's help. Another option would be seek godly counsel. So when you think about God talking to you, turn to my rebuke. So God's trying to get your attention. Listen to the wisdom. Listen to what God says. Don't be atheistic. Don't be agnostic. Don't be a doubter. Turn to my rebuke. Friends, listen. Yes, God is talking to you. Even when you're stubborn, even when you won't listen to God, even when you're bullheaded, you pause long enough and start thinking about your options, and one of those options will be listening to God, turning to God, obeying God. And you will have to make the choice. I'm going to obey his rebuke. I'm going to obey his wisdom. I'm going to stop being stubborn. I'm going to stop being in self-denial. I'm going to simply say no to self and yes to God. And it's beautiful because what you have here in verse 23 is a double promise. Behold, I will pour out my spirit on you when you turn to God. And then the next promise is, I will make my words known to you. Now think with me. As you're going through life and you're trying to become your best, doesn't it make sense to have the God who created everything pouring out his spirit? That means the comforter. That means the Holy Spirit. That means the counselor. That means the teacher. That God is going to give you all kinds of assistance as you try to solve problems and face challenges and dream. God's willing. He's not just he's willing to talk to you or rebuke you, but he's willing to pour out my spirit. Now that little phrase, pour out my spirit, Old Testament, New Testament in the Bible, is simply he's willing to bless. He's willing to give. He's willing to help. He's willing to protect. He's willing to provide. Why go through life? Why have all the problems in life and do it alone? It says, Proverbs 1:23, behold, in other words, look, check this out, I will pour out my Spirit on you. The person who turns to God receives the Spirit of God, receives the goodness of God, receives the wisdom of God individually. It doesn't matter where you're at. Yesterday I called a hospital and I was searching for a senior citizen who I had not seen in church, and we got a message that the senior citizen ended up in the hospital with heart-related problems, and I called several times, and the room that the individual was staying in, the phone just kept being busy. But listen, when you have heart problems like this person did, don't you want God to pour out His Spirit on you? If you're facing a job interview, if your marriage is in crises, if you're struggling with peace, don't you want God to pour out His Spirit on you, pour out His blessings? So listen, God is talking to you. I'm going to suggest to you, God's talking to you all the time. I'm going to suggest to you, we block out God, but if you're blocking Him out or if you're ignoring Him, then at some point He's going to rebuke you. You really don't want the rebuke of God. You want the blessings of God. You want God to pour out His Spirit on you. Now, notice the next promise, the second promise in Proverbs 1:23. So here's the life lesson. Turn to God and receive His Spirit, and God promises, what's the second promise? I will make my words known to you. So God is going to make His words, His wisdom, His blessing, His truth, His protection, His provision, His will visible, identifiable, known to you. So you have God saying, I'm going to give my Spirit, I'm going to give goodness to you, I'm going to be a part of teaching you, I'm going to be a part of being the counselor for you, I'm going to pour out my Spirit if you turn and listen to me, and then you're going to understand. I will make my words known. You're going to have clarity. This verse, Proverbs 1:23, takes you from chaos to clarity. This verse takes you from confusion to the promise of hope. We remove God from our thoughts. We block Him out. We deny Him. Our problems are around us, and we just don't have time for God. We say, God, I'm busy to ask you for help. I'm too busy to listen, or I'm too frustrated, or I'm too angry, I'm too mad, or frankly, I'm too stubborn. I'm into me, and God is talking to you, and He's rebuking you. And if you'll listen to the voice of God, the rebuke of God, the wisdom of God, knocking on the door, pleading, asking, please listen. God, grace and mercy perseveres. Now, that doesn't mean that if you keep rejecting God, that everything's just going to be fine. No, if you keep rejecting God, if you don't turn to God, then there are natural consequences. I don't see God as being looking to hurt you, but he's not going to be mocked. If you're stubborn and you continue to deny God, you continue to reject God, you continue to shake your fist at God, sooner or later you're going to find that your problems just get bigger and bigger. And yes, if you go like that all your life, rejecting God, there's no place in heaven for a person who denies God and denies Jesus Christ. So there is an ultimate consequence, divine. But here's a verse that's crystal clear. Your lesson in life, number one lesson in life, is turn to God and receive the Spirit of God and clarity about God's truth, which means your life will be better. You'll move from confusion to clarity, from doubt to hope. If you read chapter 1 of Proverbs, you hear clearly that God is moving everywhere in your life, and he's trying to get your attention. Our problem is we just keep shutting God out. We don't have time for God. We don't have time to listen to the voice of God. We don't take God serious. I'm gently saying to you, turn to the correction. Listen to the correction of God. And God says, I'll pour out my Spirit. I'll make my words known to you. Let me give you a quick example. Anytime that, good morning. Anytime that we get upset or frustrated with life, what do we typically do? We typically move toward anger, or somebody gets blamed, and that typically takes us into greater negativity. But when you turn and listen to God, that creates clarity. The Spirit of God is poured out when you listen and obey God. And the words of God, the understanding of God's truth and the will of God becomes clearer. So you, instead of increasing your frustration when you're angry, disappointed, you can decrease it by turning to God. Let's say you have a major dream. Well, don't dream without God. Let's say you have a major problem. Don't go through the problem without God. Let's say there's a desire that you have. Don't chase that desire without God. Let's say somebody is upset with you. Somebody wants to do you wrong. Somebody wants to gossip about you, slander, or somebody wants to wrong you in some way. Don't do it alone. Do it with God. Now, listen to these words again. I'm going to go back to verse 22 of chapter 1 of Proverbs, and then I'm going to reread verse 23. Here's chapter 22. This is the wisdom of God talking. How long You naive ones, will you love simplistic thinking? And how long will scoffers delight themselves in scoffing? And fools hate God's knowledge. Verse 23. God says, the wisdom of God says, turn to my rebuke. God's trying to tell you the truth. He's trying to help you. Listen to him. Behold, God says, promise number 1, I will pour out my spirit on you. And then promise number 2, I will make my words known to you. Let me give you a couple of reminders. Number 1, God is not the enemy. Never see God as the problem. God is always the answer. Always view God in the positive, never the negative. Always see in an optimistic way the goodness of God surrounding your life, because the goodness, the love, the kindness of God surrounds you, but you just may not see it, but it's there. Number 2, God is always trying to get your attention, but you gotta be still. Matter of fact, there's a phrase in the Bible, be still and know that I am God. So what I'm saying to you is, he's talking, he's communicating, but you have to be receptive. You have to be willing. Listen. Another suggestion, number 3, God is willing to bless you, pour out his spirit on you. God is willing to help you. God doesn't have a desire to hurt you. That's not his primary goal. We hurt ourselves. There are natural consequences when we disobey. It's not God's primary desire to punish you. God's primary desire is to be good and offer grace and mercy. All throughout the Bible, what you see is the goodness of God followed up with the rebellion of man, and then grace and mercy. Let me give you another suggestion. To have the Spirit, the blessing, the kindness, the goodness, working on your behalf in your problems and your dreams and your desires, is not going to get any better than that. So when you see the phrase pour out the Spirit of God, that means God is working on your behalf. Why run from that? Why not accept the goodness of God? Love, joy, peace, patience, the wisdom of God, truth, discernment, right from wrong. Let me give you another suggestion. When it says, make my words known to you, God cares for you personally, to the point he's going to help you get it. When you welcome, when you turn to God, God's correcting you, God's rebuking you, he's going to come alongside you and help you get it. Make my words known to you. Are there problems? Are there dreams? Are there desires that you just can't reach? You can't solve? Sure there are. Well, what if you submit to God, turn and receive God, and God gave you more wisdom, more blessing? Life would be better. So there is a positive correlation going on here. God is trying to get your attention. You're going through life every day, and he says, turn to me. Turn to my rebuke. Accept my correction. And check this out. I will pour out my Spirit on you, and I will make my words known to you. Yes, God is talking to you right now. And you probably, if you're honest, you can look around and you can see how God is correcting you or rebuking you, how God is trying to get your attention. And God is just waiting for you to respond, to turn and receive God. I'm simply suggesting, when you figure this one out, Proverbs 1:23, you have just mastered the number one life lesson. If you take that Proverbs 1:23 fact every day in your life, you're just going to enjoy life many times more. This is Walk and Talk 149. It's February 23rd. I want to invite you to worship this weekend, Sunday. We have an 8 o'clock, at 9:30, 11, and a 6 p.m. First Baptist Church, Tempe, Arizona, 4525 South McClintock. Come and worship with us. We have classes for children, as well as for teenagers and adults, to help people discover God. If we can help you in any way, contact the church office, 480-839-0926, and ask for a pastor. Tell them you got a question, you got a challenge, you have a obstacle that you need help on. If I'm available, I'm happy to help. If not, one of our other pastors will help. Your best days, your best life is ahead of you. But remember, turn to God and receive God's Spirit. The Bible calls the Spirit of God the Comforter, the Teacher, the Convictor, the Counselor. And God will make His truth, His words, Logos in the New Testament refers to, He'll make Jesus and the wisdom of Jesus clear, known to you, visible, understandable. We hope you have a great day. Next week, we will do Walk and Talk 150 from Mesa, Arizona on Wednesday next week, and then on the following 10 or 11 days, we will be in Israel, and we'll do walk and talks every day from Israel. Looking forward to taking 38 individuals to the Middle East. If you're interested in going to Israel with us, contact the church office, and happy to give you information on that. Blessings on you.